Hey there, I'm Eric Crivella, Construction Solutions Director for Bentley Systems. I head up our ConstructSim group that does advanced work packaging, as well as completions and commissioning, mobility type of applications. I came to Bentley via an acquisition back in 2008. Rich history of also participating in CII, where these gentlemen also participate in the CII, Advanced Work Packaging Community of Business Advancement, the CBA, in which we have a group of passionate people that are trying to really take this AWP, Project Execution Framework, and really get the benefits out of it and sort out how to get there and make incremental progress along those lines in terms of taking this best practice and really applying it and getting better, and, applying the lean concepts of continuous improvement, if you will, going forward. So I have a pretty exciting panel of people here that participate in the CII CBA as well. But before we get to them, in terms of framing kind of where we're at in terms of advanced work packaging, for those that aren't familiar with advanced work packaging, it's a project execution framework that basically says, hey, I'm going to put some dedicated detailed planners, people to do detailed planning on a project early on. Start with defining your path of construction, defining the engineering, rationalizing that with the path of construction, and developing engineering work packages, construction work packages, breaking those construction work packages down into installation work packages, into test packages, into turnover, and then now we even have procurement work packages. So it's about chunking the work up in the smaller increments, and then before that work gets released out to the field, to make sure you're doing a process of constraint analysis, making sure that everything is ready to go before you release that out to the field. And so in the business case behind that is basically if I'm doing more detailed planning and constraint analysis, I'm able to release these packages out to the field that are constraint-free, and I can make sure that I'm being more productive out in the field. So largely that's what my career has been over the past 10 years, is trying to develop automation tools in order to support that, but knowing full well it's just not about the tools, it's also about the work processes. It's the people, it's the systems, it's a variety of things that contribute to the success of that. And that's what I'm hoping to pull out of the panel today, is a detailed discussion along those lines. So with me today, we have, to my left here is Brian Vogel, who's the AWP champion from at Dow, where they're implementing advanced work packaging on kind of a programmatic basis. And then we also have Jamie Gerbrecht from ExxonMobil, who's the technology leader globally for the downstream construction portion within ExxonMobil. And then we have Decker Bernard, who's a project manager, but also kind of looking after supporting AWP on multiple projects from a corporate perspective coming from Zachary. So these guys are going to give us kind of an overview in terms of what they're doing AWP-wise and what it means to them. But before they kick off and do that, from kind of where things are at, I've presented at downstream conferences in New Orleans in the past, and over the past year or two, we've kind of gone from onesie, twosie projects to now a lot of owners are incorporating this directly into their specs, right? So you'd be crazy to do a major project without specifying the need for advanced work packaging. So a lot of the RFIs that are on the street and bids on the packages are now specifying the use of this best practice, as well as they're getting serious about how to measure it, right? And it's not just one or two projects, but it's on a programmatic basis, right? We're trying this on multiple projects. We're trying to see how far we're moving the needle. And so along those lines, let me have these guys jump in here and kind of give an overview in terms of what AWP, what their organization is doing from an advanced work packaging perspective and from a programmatic perspective, meaning doing it on more than one project, right? So if you guys, Brian, you want to jump in here and kind of give an overview in terms of what does programmatic adoption of AWP mean for you guys at Dow?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Eric. So for those of you that don't know Dow, we're a little bit different than the rest of the industry in the sense that Dow has an internal EPC capability that we utilize heavily on projects. Okay. Thought that was me for a minute, sorry. So we have the internal EPC capability, we have construction management capabilities, so unlike a lot of the owner companies that are taking their projects out to an EPC house, we can do all that work internally. So in terms of adopting at a programmatic level, that's exactly right. We've got a very robust overall project methodology that starts from cradle to grave for a project, and we've overlaid advanced work packaging against that. So we've identified all the touch points, we know where all the interfaces are, and we're really rolling this out across the company in staged implementations to make it applicable on all projects, all sizes of projects, no matter if it's done in-house at one of our large engineering centers, or if it's done at one of the small site executed centers, or if we even have to take it out to an EPC house for extra. I can go on if you want.
What types and size of projects?
Types and size of projects, our early implementations are targeted for projects that are 10 million and greater, and right now we've got 8 to somewhere between 8 and 12, depending on how you count them, projects that we're in flight with. We haven't made it all the way through a cycle. In other words, we haven't got all the way through the construction phase on an AWP implemented project yet. We're getting very close to that. The first one that hit the field is actually in construction now, so we're looking forward to seeing what the gains are from there. We've got several life extension types of projects that we're implementing on. We think those bring their own challenges because we have a turnaround component that's associated with those. So we have to work with not only the capital side, but then integrate with the turnaround team. Our maintenance organization has grabbed onto this, and they're applying it to a turnaround project being executed up in Canada at the moment. So we have all different sizes, all different types of projects that we're implementing on. Our leadership has said, this is the way we're going, this is the way we're going forward, and we're going to implement on every project that comes in from here on.
That top-down commitment's critical.
Top-down.
Absolutely critical. All right, Jamie, you want to jump in along the same lines with this?
Yes, Eric. Knowing that AWP can bring improvement in safety performance and as well in execution efficiency, and in fact, across the performance dimensions of safety, quality, cost, schedule, productivity, and predictability, and also recognizing that we as an industry jointly developed AWP as a foundation through CII, and then ultimately designated as a best practice. We're applying the fundamentals of AWP on projects of various sizes and complexities, from large projects to smaller projects in a fit-for-purpose way. And we plan to continue doing this with projects going forward.
Is this something that you write into your contracts?
Including contractual aspects is one of the key fundamentals of AWP.
Excellent. Okay, Decker, you want to jump in here on this?
Yeah, very similar to Jamie and Brian. We're bought in, so I'm part of a 4-man team out of San Antonio. We all just came off a big mega Gulf Coast project, implementing mainly the construction side of work packaging, and they brought us straight out 7 days a week into the corporate environment and said, implement AWP. And so for the last 2 years, that's what we've been working down. Top down, we want accountability, we want transparency, we want to make sure that each phase has done that. And from that, we developed an implementation plan. We start with training, making sure everybody really understands what is AWP, because there's a lot of different ideas. We take CII, implement that, and then getting that first, everybody aligned on what is the plan, what are we going to do, and then working the information management and everything through to have a successful project. And we've developed processes and procedures to be able to do that. And we've implemented that on $90 million jobs all the way up to the $5-6 billion mega jobs. And every job Zachary has in-house right now from an EPC standpoint has some form of AWP, whether that's just on the construction side because we were too late to implement it on engineering and procurement, or if it's the whole gambit all the way through.
From an automation perspective, what would you describe there? You guys automating this process, or is this integrated in with your project IT tools?
So we have our own procedure. Right now, we're in the process of updating all the different departments and their standing operating procedures so that they talk at AWP and their SOPs or acronyms, and making sure the whole company is speaking the same lingo and moving in that right direction. So we want it to where it's not just Decker and AP's team that does this, but this is how we do business from here on out.
So if I understand you correctly, you have a home office type of team that supports all your projects out in the field, supporting it from both an IT perspective, but also in terms of training up
Yes,
people on the
execution,
project,
getting people trained, everything.
bringing them
like
on
that.
board. Excellent. So that home office approach, that's a good one. Okay. All right. Anything else to add in terms of how you guys are organized programmatically, or looking at this in terms of doing this across multiple projects?
I'll just add a little bit, Eric, that, from a program standpoint, we're introducing AWP to projects basically at the FEL kickoff meeting. So we're introducing it to them there. We don't get into a lot of detail because if you've sat through an FEL kickoff meeting, it's a lot of information for people to digest in a day or 2 days, whatever. But then we have a short session with them shortly after, hopefully within a week, and start to go through some of the details. The problem that we have, or the issues that we have, is that it's new to the organization. There's a lot of people who have heard of AWP, but they really don't know what the details or what it entails. And there's a lot of misinformation going around. Oh, I hear it causes me all this extra work. Well, we've gone to great lengths to integrate it into our existing work processes such that we don't believe that it causes the disciplines additional work. And so my discussion with them thus far has been, if you think it's causing you additional work, come and talk to me, because I don't believe that it is, and we're going to try to figure out a way to minimize or eliminate what you think that additional work is. So like I said, we've taken great steps toward full implementation, integration at the work process level to make this as transparent as an overlay process as we can.
Yeah. Excellent.
And Eric, let me add that, in the beginning, the intent was that advanced work packaging would be something that companies could take and encode into the way they do work with their systems and processes and tools that exist. And I think most of us, as we understand through the implementation resources that CII has in place, the gaps that we have, the opportunities for improvement relative to what AWP is about, we find that there's something in AWP for each of us.
Yeah, and from a EPC construction, the sooner we're involved, whether it's at FEL or the feed, the better AWP is going to be on the project. The sooner you can get involved, the better it'll implement.
Excellent. Okay. Well, kind of my second line of questioning or theme for questioning relates to benefits realization. Right? There's a lot of people think AWP is the topic du jour, that's the buzzwords for right now, and there's a considerable amount of hype related to advanced work packaging. But at the end of the day, there's no big easy button, right, in terms of getting these benefits. It takes a lot of discipline, it takes a lot of rigor. But in terms of what successes have you seen to date, right? So, I'll speak from kind of a Bentley perspective. We've participated in a number of projects, and we've seen a lot of validation of what we've seen from CII, and participated. A lot of the projects that were in the CII research had taken on an automation tool along those lines and done at least the work-phase planning portion of it. The advanced work packaging is applying it much more early and more rigorously in the engineering and procurement portions of it. But we've seen some good benefits along those lines in cost, safety, productivity, predictability, schedule, and quality. But what can you tell the audience here in terms of what sort of successes, or where are you at from an organizational goal? Where do you think the application of AWP programmatically is going to get you, if you can't speak directly to any specific benefits? Jamie, you want to kick us off along these lines?
So from a goal standpoint, safety improvement, sustaining safety, also execution efficiency, improving execution efficiency, being able to do more with fewer total work hours because of increased productivity. These are key goals that AWP helps you to achieve. When I can say in all of my years of working with projects in planning and execution, when I visit a project that is performing work-face planning well, that has done what it requires from an AWP standpoint to have engineering and procurement support optimal work-face planning, I see a very positive difference in the field. And that's what this is all about. This is about caring for the workforce to the extent that they can see it. And you create a work environment where you improve communication and collaboration. You're working the right issues at the right time, avoiding delays. And when you have a project that has developed a theme that, hey, we're different here, and that's their motto. And it doesn't just mean that they're appreciating safety handouts, that they're seeing a lot of safety banners, but it means that they can also say that they see this project doing more for them in safety than any other project they've ever worked on. And this is from individuals who've worked on projects in the field for 30 plus years. Then you know that it's making a difference. What do I see in the field? Less chaos, better organization, foremen spending the right amount of time at the workface, not chasing constraints and trying to manage those at the last minute or way after they should have been done, and actually seeing better, improved time on tools relative to projects that are not performing AWP that are at the same level of complexity.
So you're measuring, one of the big measures is time on tools, and you're seeing some, when compared to other projects that aren't using AWP, a noticeable bump in productivity improvement.
Yes, and the better organization with manageable packages of work, you end up with some benefits that you may not recognize when you start. If you are going to proceed with overtime or a night shift, packages of work give you better clarity on what it is that you can effectively and efficiently do during those additional shifts. So there are various aspects that, again, the more you do this, the more you see the additional opportunities for efficiency that become available. They become enabled because you're creating this type of environment.
Okay. So some of the predictability, the safety, and the productivity. Decker, you want to jump in here in terms of any sort of tangible benefits? Or
I like to say it's like doing a project at home when you go to Home Depot 5 times. It's so frustrating. So with AWP and our IWP process, it's do it one time, right? Don't have to go to the tool room again. Don't have to go search material or even go look in the laydown yard to see what you can start on. It's all about having that organization up front. And just the morale boosters we're seeing from our frontline supervision. They love it, the younger generation coming in. It's not constant frustration and rework and things like that. It's very good. So the productivity absolutely is getting better. And us as a company, we're focusing less on PF, right, productivity. And we're focusing more on, did you start it on time? Did you finish it on time? Did quality sign off? And is all the documentation turned into turnover? Because a lot of our projects in the past where we have multiple rework and you get to that 80% of the project and then all of a sudden you're just throwing people at it and you're spending money and safety takes a nosedive and all those things that you don't want, that predictability's gone. That's what this takes that effort for, because we focus on, we don't start till we have everything. We start it on time. We finish it on time. Quality's looking at it. So from a quality aspect, things are improving. And then productivity is going to fall in line with that. And we're already seeing those benefits already on a couple of our projects in the field. So it really is a great process. And once you see it, and like Jamie said, just the feeling. If you've ever been on a job that's 7 days a week and the turnover mode intense, you don't get that feeling on these jobs that are performing. It's a real positive feeling. The field embraces it. They want to know, hey, what's my next package? Give me what I got next. And that's what you want to see out there.
I think the guys want to feel good about what they're
doing.
They do. Right?
They want to do
so morale
good.
Improves when if it's a week's worth of work or a shift's worth of work and it's done. There's a positive feeling there.
There's that
right?
feeling of accomplishment,
Yeah.
not we just hung it up with 9-wire and we got to go put a support on later or things like that. It's that accomplishment.
Yeah, agreed. Brian, anything you want to talk about on the benefits side of it in terms of where you're at target-wise?
Yeah, I'll just talk about how we're approaching it on the Dow projects at the moment. And you heard the Dow people up here earlier today talk about the Gulfstream program that we just concluded that's been ongoing for the last several years. There's lots and lots of data that we have or let me say, first of all, there's lots of industry data on field productivity. We have a lot of Dow data now from that Gulfstream program for the U.S. Gulf Coast that says productivity is not very good in the field. So we've designed our measurements for the initial projects around wrench time. So we're going to be conducting wrench time studies on the portions of these scopes that are being implemented with advanced work packaging. And, you know, it just works out well on a project where we've got a portion of the project that is not being AWP implemented because of some intellectual property issues. And it's two structures right next to each other in the same project. It's the same contractor is going to be installing both. So we think that's going to be an ideal case study for wrench time, right? We have this process structure is all set up for AWP success, and this one is, you know, call it conventional. So we're going to have that data when we're done, and we'll do those comparisons.
Excellent, excellent. Any thoughts in terms of beyond tool time studies, you know, how to measure this? You know, I'm certainly coming from a Bentley perspective. One of the things that we look at in terms of some level of measure of a leading indicator of success is how much training. You know, has your organization been trained, right? And so the more people that are aligned and aware and educated on the best practice tends to have a direct impact in terms of the success of. Is anybody else measuring that?
Well, let me say something about training, Eric, because what we did in Dow is about a year ago, we organized some working sessions with our approved labor providers. We did a session here in the Gulf Coast of Texas. We did one in Louisiana, where we invited in all the contractors that do construction work for us on our jobs. And we laid out, this is advanced work packaging, this is where Dow is going with it, and we really hope that you guys look forward to getting on board with us, because in the future, this is the way we're doing the work. There are some of those people who left that room or those rooms and started reaching out to other industry experts, Bentley being one of them, and there's some of the contractors that have kind of taken a, well, let's just wait and see attitude. And we're already seeing that in the first project that we were getting bids back on, how well that's been or not been received by these labor providers. So, you know, we laid out our expectations. You know, quite frankly, told them right up front, look, we expect that if you get on board with this, it's going to give you a competitive advantage over your competitors. Okay? So some have taken a hold of it and running with it. Others have not. And we're seeing their attitudes reflected in their bids already.
It's impressive.
Eric agreed. No question, training is a key metric. I also consider that one of the key fundamentals. When I look at the fundamentals of AWP and what do you do differently when you apply AWP versus not applying it, the training associated with AWP is a fundamental.
Yeah, we're doing the same. You know, our frontline supervision as they come in, when they do their orientations, we have a training called FST. We're incorporating AWP training into that because they need to know what they're looking at, what they're about to do, how the program operates. So training is very key, and making sure everybody across the projects know it from an EEP and C standpoint.
And Eric, I'll add one more point quick. The more tied in you are to CII and the ongoing research associated with productivity improvement. Decker and I had the opportunity to experience the fact that some CII research showed that if you'll train down to the foreman level the workers in AWP, even if you're on a project that's not going to implement AWP, those workers, because they've been trained in what AWP is intended to do, it'll remind them of the fact that their job is to be at the work face doing crew leadership, crew coaching, crew mentoring. It's not to be away from the work face chasing constraints while the crew is unsupervised. And so they found from that, it was an interesting outcome of that research. So AWP training taken to the right level can bring benefits to all projects.
Yeah, I think that was RT 330, frontline supervision. And
Right.
exactly what Jamie said, that even if your frontline supervision is trained in advanced work packaging, you can see productivity improvement, right? So which is, even if they're not doing it. So it's a trending in the right direction, right? So
And it relates to the mindset. In a way, AWP is a mindset. It's something that does apply to the home projects that you may be planning to do Saturday, a week and a half from now. And if you plan it correctly, you'll see much more efficiency.
Excellent, excellent. All right, so I'm going to move on to the third theme in terms of AWP innovations and advancements, right? So, from a systems integration, automation, digital workflows perspective, for any of the creative things that you're doing above and beyond what was developed as part of the CII Research Team 272 and the follow-on work at CII Research Team 319 in terms of validating the best practice. I think these gentlemen have some interesting things to share along the lines of advancements above and beyond what was put out there in terms of the initial research and the implementation model. So there's a number of topics to cover in this area, and that I think are worthwhile mentioning in terms of what, if you're going to develop an AWP program, you might want to take into consideration some of these. Who would like to kick off on this one?
This is my turn there, Eric. So, when we look at, you can see the surfboard slide up there, focuses on CWPs, EWPs, and then IWPs. We were in a meeting with our design leads, and we asked them, we were walking them through AWP, bringing them up to speed, and they said, well, this is all great, but if we don't have owner input when we need it, and we don't have vendor data, then we can't be successful. So something we've added to our program is we call it an owner work package, and we call it a vendor work package. And so if an owner has a review time, if they have a permit, if they have to supply PFDs, if it's heat mass balance, whatever it is that could impact engineering, we want to put that in a package, we want to put it in the schedule, we want to see the impacts downstream. Same for vendors. If the vendors aren't turning the data in time in order to finish your design work or route ISOs, whatever you need to do, we need to look at that and also let expediting have a key in that so that they're going and chasing that vendor data to get in time. And it may just be, approvals that go past a couple days, but we need to start looking at that and really holding each part accountable. The way we look at it is focus on the right thing at the right time. So if it's vendor data and owner deliverables in engineering, if it's commercial aspects and feedback from engineering for procurement, if it's furnish and install drawings from the owner for construction, we want to make sure we look at that at every part. And, to focus on procurement for late deliverables, maybe that's an expediting function. Just who is responsible at the right time for that product? And then tracking that all the way through materials management. Information management is very important. We use a cloud-based Microsoft Azure now, Power BI outputs, trying to get away from the myriad of Excel sheets that we always tend to grow on these projects and get it where it's simple, everybody sees the same thing, the nomenclature for the packages flows through, the schedule is your tool, it's not just something you update, it's a tool you use to see the problem, so the management on the team has time to do something. We always say we can handle problems if we have time to do it, but we can't handle surprises that are late in the game. That's where people get mad, that's where people get angry, and we really want to highlight those missing steps early at the right phase of each project.
Excellent, excellent. Okay. Well, it sounds like you guys are doing some good things. You find it breaks down the silos in terms of having some level of those packages?
We're getting there.
And it sounds like with an owner work package, which is kind of new, I've heard some exposure to that, but it sounds like in terms of a level of accountability back up to the owner.
Yeah, we haven't got any negative impact. It's just, hey, we're gonna hold you accountable. We're gonna have those tough conversations with you up front in the project, because no owner, at least in my experience, likes to say, well, if you'd have given me it when you said you'd give it to me 8 months later, they really don't like that. So we want to make sure we talk about it at the right time in the project.
Excellent, excellent. Jamie, anything you want to add in terms of advancements, innovations?
Yes, Eric, I love the implementation resource 272 that CII published, and also the implementation resource 319. And I have to here applaud the EPC community for what they've done to really digest IR 272, 319, to do some critical thinking, participate in the AWP conferences and in supporting the conferences, listening to owners and to others, and being creative and looking for fit-for-purpose applications of AWP. This includes, approaches to how they can use procurement work packages, again, other types of packages, as Decker mentioned, tailoring package contents to fit the right scope, and applying technology, RFID technology where it makes sense to do so, field data mobility. You start to get a heightened sense of achievability of those areas of technology when you're positioning a project to be able to capture those incremental efficiencies. And you have confidence that it'll make a difference for the project. Because they come at a bit of a cost, but you've got to see that value at the end. I'm currently reviewing some very good AWP guidance documents, architecture plans. So I really see companies taking the time to look at AWP as it applies to them. And so again, applauds to the EPC community here in particular.
Excellent, excellent. Procurement work packages, et cetera. There's a bunch of stuff there. Brian, what do you guys got that's innovative?
Let me take it a little bit different direction, Eric. So at one of the conferences we were at, there was a scaffolding provider that gave one of the breakout sessions talking about their great use in terms of work packaging for scaffolding. So we found that very interesting. We actually invited them to our office to give us their presentation on the scaffolding, and what they were telling us and what we think we learned didn't exactly jive up. But so we started working with this scaffolding provider. They are now working to be able to build an I model for scaffolding that we can pull into our virtual construction model so that we can work package the scaffolding. Okay? So again, I'll go back to what was said earlier today from the Dow Gulfstream program is scaffolding was a mess. It was an absolute wreck. And if we can do anything to improve that, it's going to pay huge dividends. And we think that being able now to work package scaffolding and have that integrated with your virtual construction model, it's a capability we've never, ever had before. So we're really looking forward to implementation of that as well.
Scaffolding can eat up 22 to 30-some% of the direct man hours, right? So it makes sense to integrate it into the project execution framework and for each work package to specify its access requirements and to have that all put together in a virtual construction model.
And I mentioned some of the projects, the lifetime extension projects that we're undertaking, especially where they're integrated with a turnaround. And as you know, the capital project has their plans, the turnaround team has their plans, and we need to marry the two together, and scaffolding is one of the biggest opportunities that we think we see there.
Yeah. And I know of the company that you're referring to, and one of the cool things is tying it also back to brownfield type of environments, being able to scan in existing facilities and plug that into the scaffolding and come up with the requirements there. So there's some real innovations along those lines. Any comments related to innovations or anything that you're doing incentive-wise or contract-wise? Even Decker at a subcontract level, are you including any subcontractors in terms of making this, downstream if you're bringing in anybody else?
Yeah, so absolutely. With our subcontract group, we have IWP in their contract when they go out. They're expected to do IWPs now. A lot of the subcontracts aren't up to speed on AWP, so we provide planners to help them get there. But we've seen projects where a piling rig comes in, we think they're going one way, and they just go around in their inclusion zone. So it's important to make sure they're part of the plan, that they're involved early, not maybe necessarily to the discrete work packages that we might build, but at least part of the plan on an IWP level so we can track it, we can monitor it. Been involved with many subcontracts that we just kind of left alone to their own devices, and at the end they're a big problem. So they have to be incorporated in it, and we're getting that in our contracts.
Anybody doing anything creative on the materials, the integrated materials management side? Because that's a critical component of advanced work packaging.
You set me up on that one. We're building a robust integrated materials management process and organization within Dow. I mean, we have not been real diligent with that in the past. We issue a PO, we say we have a need on site date of July 1st or whatever. We sit back and say, I hope it shows. So what we've done is we've built into our requisitioning and purchase order process some specific data requirements from our suppliers, whether it's an equipment supplier whether it's a bulk item supplier, fabricated pipe, for example. We're telling them that they have to provide us their weekly work logs or daily, depending on what the nature of the activity is, and we're bringing that information in so that we can see what their progress is rather than waiting on an expediter report or some kind of a weekly report from somebody else. So we bring that into our virtual construction model, so when the guys are in the field doing the building the installation work packages, they have that data at their fingertips, and they can see, well, I'm planning this package and the material's not on site yet. Oh, here's a bunch of material over here that is on site. Let me go work on that area. Okay, so we've undertaken that effort.
Hey, Eric, let me add one point about subcontractors. You know, it's been refreshing to see a number of subcontractors and suppliers show a strong desire to learn more about AWP and to play their part, which is key when it comes to materials and so forth, and certain key elements of construction work. That they be clued in and that they be included in what it means to do AWP, work through the work phase planning pieces, be involved at the right times. So there are a number of companies that are hungry to learn more about it, that are more at the subcontractor, supplier role typically. And they're hearing about AWP sometimes through the conference or other ways, but they look forward to a stronger relationship with the main contractors relative to the training and how they jointly work toward the most effective AWP and work phase planning aspects of it.
When I think of some of the subcontracts on a modularization, like a project that involves a lot of modularization, fab yards typically do pretty well in their production type of environment, but you need to have them integrated with the AWP system in order to have some level of transparency and visibility in case they're having any issues. So hopefully, the combination of integrated materials management and looking at it from a modularization perspective, and putting that into the subcontracts and making sure you get the data right in your subcontracts is a big deal as well.
Yeah, stronger accountability, that's better discipline across the life cycle of the project is the benefit you see.
There you go. Okay, so I want to leave some time for Q&A, and so if you haven't, put some Slido questions up. I should have mentioned that earlier, but before we get to the Slido questions, so hold off on that for 1 second. I want to finish up with one of my last theme for a question is, basically, we're at a place where we know it's not just technology, it's the sociology. 10% technology, 90% sociology. There's a lot of stuff that has to be done in order to really see success and achieve the benefits that we talk about in terms of 10% decrease in total installed cost, 25% productivity improvement. There's no big easy button to get there, right? But what are the keys to success? And if you could, give these guys some insight in terms of, what's good to focus on, or what are the keys to success in terms of advanced work packaging? Go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, I'll jump in. First, I'd say leverage the safety benefit that AWP brings. If AWP brought only improved safety and everything else stayed equal, that might be enough, right? I mean, we're all about wanting to make sure nobody gets hurt. So leverage the fact that this brings that improvement that we're looking for in safety. Read the implementation resource documents. And they were mentioned earlier. They're really valuable, and refer back to them regularly. Determine your barriers, identify and engage champions within your organization that will insist upon improving execution efficiency and who won't back down. They'll help overcome the barriers. Don't assume you already essentially do the fundamentals of AWP without looking into it deeply enough to understand what the fundamentals are and looking for the ways you can improve. And, include AWP in contracts. Be persistent, I think, is very key.
Yeah. Everybody says they do AWP. Very few do it very well, right? What are some of the things that ensure success, Decker?
For me, and for our enterprise, it's getting visibility early, right? Getting that plan set. Everybody agrees that's the E, the P, the C, operations, owners. Everybody's stacking hands, suppliers, on this is how we're going to perform this project. And we know things change, things happen. But as a team, we have to come together and make sure we understand what that change is. And don't chase the percent complete curve. So many times we fall back into that trap of we need to get progress, we need to issue spools, we need to issue ISOs. We need to deliver what construction needs when they need it. And if you can focus on anything, form your game plan, get that path of construction set, make sure procurement follows along, and then construction, hold that discipline, that rigor. It's important, and so often, it's easy to go back into ways we've been doing things for the last 10 years. And you saw some of the statistics maybe this morning if you were in here with Keith with Jacobs, just we haven't been performing well on it. So we have to have some discipline, we have to hold each party accountable, and we have to be transparent. It's important.
Excellent. Brian?
Yeah, I'll say maybe a little bit of repetition, but early engagement into projects. As I mentioned earlier, we're engaging at the FEL kickoff, and lots of communication. Not just explain to people what the AWP process is, but sit down with them by discipline early in engineering to talk about what it is and what it is not in terms of their own work process. I'll say it again, that we've gone to great lengths to try to make it as overlay transparent as possible for the discipline work processes. We think we've done a good job, but unless they understand and we can clearly articulate to them what they do need to do and what they don't need to do, then we can get them going in the right direction. Okay.
Excellent. Okay, so let's use the last 5 minutes here in order to take some of the questions here. So I have Slido open here. All right, so in terms of, there's a shortage of work-face planners in the Gulf Coast and in general. Is there anything that you guys are doing to address work-face planner capability within the Gulf Coast and or outside of North America? It's one of the questions here.
So I'll go first. We have a lot of planners that are out of school 2-3 years, getting those guys field experience. We're taking some of our general foremen who have been in the industry 30-35 years and don't quite have the energy to run the crews out in the field, bringing them in there, giving them the technical ability to be able to plan using a ConstructSim software or some software like that. PICC, which is, I think, a Canadian company, they provide training, so we've started sending some of them through theirs. A lot of it's just that on-the-job training and making sure that they're supported well. We have the right managers above them, and guys who maybe aren't performing well in the execution phase do very well in the planning phase. So picking those right individuals early on and making sure you support them, you train them, you give them what they need is really key in developing good work-face plans.
All right. We have, what are the major issues encountered during AWP implementation process? Anybody want to take that one on?
It depends on where you start, right? I mean, if you start early in engineering in the FEL phase, I think a major barrier or an issue is getting the engineering team to understand what they do and what they don't need to do differently. Like I said, they hear a lot. There's a lot of speculation. People have heard of AWP, but they haven't done it yet, so they really don't know what all is involved. And the natural inclination is what I'm noticing is that people think, oh my gosh, here comes another program that I have to go do a whole bunch of new stuff for in order to make it work. And what they're finding out is that's really not true. What I'm telling the people is plan and execute your work as you normally would, and I will help you figure out what, if anything, you need to do extra to make the AWP stuff work. And oftentimes it's something as simple as adding a column on the line schedule or the instrument schedule for a CWA identifier. Wow, that wasn't so hard. Okay.
Here's an interesting question. How do you avoid contractors giving you lip service to AWP to get the contract and then not really performing during execution?
Yeah, Jamie and Brian, how do you do that?
Well, like I said earlier, we held sessions with our Gulf Coast labor providers. That's our construction contractors who are approved to do work in Dow. And there's a couple of them said, oh yeah, we do AWP, no problem. Well, then we solicited bids for a project, and one of the ones who said, yeah, we're AWP shop, came back on it was a lump sum contracting strategy. So their bid came back and said, here's the price to do it normally, and here's an adder to do AWP, right? So we said, okay, you're not really doing it. So we went in a different direction. So I think the key to that question is you need to ask them a lot of questions and dig into the details. Don't just take someone's word for it that, yeah, I'm an AWP shop and I can make this work. You're going to have to ask some specific questions based on what they're telling you and what your knowledge is to make sure that they really understand what you're asking and what you're asking of them.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Anybody else want to chime in on that?
Yeah, collaboration is key. As an owner, not trying to overdo or be prescriptive in terms of here's IR 272, do it exactly like this, but rather to work together with a contractor to understand their systems and processes and tools to look at bringing about the best result. And I know, yes, a more collaborative contractual structure can help out. So that's something to keep in mind.
Is anybody doing anything creative on the measurement audits? In terms of pressing forward and okay, you say you do it, but we're gonna see how much we move the needle, right? Any plans along those lines, or any execution that you're doing along those lines in terms of measuring this?
I mean, for Zachary, we have a self-health check audit program that we do periodically. Bentley, you guys have an audit program we've used before. There's companies out there that do audits, and they'll give you insight into how the project's doing. But, back to the question earlier, it's if anybody tells you they have a fully mature AWP project or process, they're probably not telling you the truth. I mean, we're still learning. We're in the infant stage. We're going from crawling to walking. We're getting construction where they're functional. Engineering and procurement are starting to come along. So, it's just being transparent. We're learning. We're growing together. We want relationships with our owners so they understand, hey, we're going to get better at this. And that's the key. And having those health checks, knowing where we might be falling down, working together to get better, that's the whole key in the process. It's got to be a team atmosphere. It can't be the general contractor and the owner. It's got to be a team.
Agreed. You got to get to the one team. You got to have the collaboration, but you also have to have the discipline and rigor to do this and to hold people accountable to doing it and making those work packages make a round trip back in, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
All right. I thank the panel. Thank you guys for sticking with us.
Thank you.